The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors, advertisers, or presenters. Advertising does not imply endorsement by the hosts, guests, and presenters.
When you say when air gets polluted, it's called air pollution. But why is it called light pollution? Because I think it's darkness that is getting polluted in light,
Yes,
right?
totally.
So the
Yeah.
light is the pollutant.
Yes, the
So I think
phrase
that
is wrong. The whole phrase
phrase
is wrong.
itself is wrong. It's wrong.
Yes. It looks like, believe it or not, it looks like magnetic induction lighting might be making a comeback. But before I tell you more about that, I just want to say there's lots of ways to support Restoring Darkness. You can donate to the show, you can just listen to the show, you can watch it, you can share it, you can check out our social media, like our social media, hit the subscribe button. So there's lots of different ways to support. And one of those ways is with corporate sponsorship. We can talk about some of the products that are making headway in the fight to preserve night and to restore darkness. One of those companies is called Tesla Induction Lighting Company.com. Tesla Induction Lighting. That's right. They make induction light fixtures. And, there's different ways to encase fixtures. There's different ways to use reflectors and stuff like that. Prior to the era of LED, that made lighting in some ways less offensive. I don't know why, but it's just LEDs seem to deliver a lot more glare and eye strain, especially in certain applications like ski slopes, for example. So Tesla Induction Lighting has unique products that are not LED. And so they're also very energy efficient. And in my opinion, I actually think induction lighting lasts longer than LED. Like just in my career, I've watched the induction lighting boom from say 2007 to 2014. And I have a lot of customers whose induction lighting systems are working fine to this day. And that's at least 10 years ago. On the other hand, with LED, I got lots of customers that have all sorts of problems with burnt out LED light fixtures. So induction lighting is an interesting choice in 2025, particularly in the night preservation and darkness restoration space. So I want you to invite you to check out TeslaInductionLightingCompany.com. I'm not going to spell it, but that's TeslaInductionLightingCompany.com, and have a look at their products there and start thinking that maybe it's time to look at induction again. Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness podcast. On today's show, it is Mark and I's great honor to be joined by Amardeep Dugar, a trained architect and advocate for all the elements of lighting design, education, and research. Dr. Amardeep is the founding principal of lighting research and design. After completing a master's degree in architectural lighting from the University of Weimar, Germany, I think it's pronounced, he pursued a PhD from Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand to solidify his academic and professional leadership role into a career at a higher level. His notable achievements include being named the Outstanding Young Scientist at the India International Science Fest in 2016 and 40 under 40 hottest lighting designers in the world in 2017 by Lighting Magazine, amongst others. Aside from working on high-profile projects and teaching at several architectural schools, he has been instrumental in conducting lighting workshops, educating students and professionals about the importance of lighting. He is also the co-founder of an online platform for lighting called the Virtual Lighting Design Community. He has been elected to the IES, that's the Illuminating Engineering Society, Board of Directors, and is part of several committees within the IES. He has a Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and a website, which will be in the show notes right down below. So if you want to follow him or look at some of his work, you can go down there and click on it. Before we get to Dr. Dugar, Mark, though, we got to go for the soft lights update. What's happening now? What's going on out there?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, let's just limit it to one thing.
Okay.
So the U.S. Department of Energy is the agency that issued what was called the 45 lumen per watt rule,
Mm-hmm.
which effectively banned the incandescent light bulb. They have a new rule coming out, I think, next year, which is where it's implemented next year, which raises that level to 120 lumens per watt. That's the minimum requirement for any general service lamp. Okay, so, but as we know, the DOE is required to liaison with the Food and Drug Administration to make sure that the replacement lights, like light emitting diodes, would be safe for public health. They have not done that. So to get information, I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the Department of Energy, asking for all their records related to their setting of this 45 lumens per watt limit. We also know that President Trump has come in and issued an executive order, which essentially says eliminate the 45 limit per watt rule. Let the consumer choose what kind of light bulb they have. So we have these two things going on. So this week, I received a letter from the Department of Energy stating, rather than producing the records that I requested, the email communications, their collaborations with the Food and Drug Administration, all the information that would go into a lawsuit, for example, about this 45 lumen per watt rule, they simply referred me to existing online records in the Federal Register. They provided no emails, no internal documentation, nothing. I now have 90, I can now appeal, which I'm going to do. So I will be writing a letter to the Department of Energy appealing their decision not to provide me with any documents whatsoever.
So it's interesting, and perhaps Dr. Dugar will have some thoughts on this or not, but I don't think the lighting industry, Mark, as a whole, just to comment on that, is as impressed with lumens per watt as, say, it once was as a metric. And I think most people in the lighting industry, Mark, are kind of ignore that kind of thing because, whatever's left out there in terms of halogen, incandescent, these kinds of technologies, it's usually because of people's serious preference for that technology. It's not because they're not aware that LEDs are available and come in lamp shapes and go in fixtures and all this kind of stuff. And I think, if they asked me, if they cared about my opinion, which they probably don't, but if they asked me, I know a lot about light bulbs and I know a lot about lighting technology and how people actually use it who buy light bulbs and condominiums and factories and how light is actually used. I would say that the focus on lumens per watt or LPW is something from another generation or something like that. It's time to move away from lumens per watt as a metric. It puts too much pressure on things. It also is preventing the lighting industry from standardizing form factors, which is probably, if they're talking about something from an environmental perspective, Mark, if the Department of Energy has a mandate to look at energy, then the most important environmental impact of lighting outside of what you're concerned about, which is the health effects of outdoor and indoor electric light, which we're going to discuss with Dr. Dugar in a minute. The most important thing is, not having to rip light fixtures out of the ceiling and import new ones from China every 5 to 10 years. This is very disruptive and is wasteful on so many different levels, Mark. And so if the DOE ever listens to this, which maybe they do. Actually, there's probably a couple people that might be Restoring Darkness listeners at the DOE. If you're out there, we love you guys. You guys are doing a good job. But someone's got to go over to the lumens per watt department and tell them it's not 2014 anymore. Okay? It's time to move on from that metric. It's a bad metric. It's no longer useful to us. So that's my response to that. Keep up the great work, Mark. I really love what you're doing and shaking. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. That's why we live in the countries we live in, because we are able to ask these kinds of questions. Dr. Dugar, welcome to the Restoring Darkness podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure. I've heard so much about this podcast. It's a pleasure to be a part of this now.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Let me ask, let's start off before we do anything else, because I know there's lots of questions Mark probably has for you, and so do I. Tell us a little bit about the virtual lighting design community. What is that about?
Now, interestingly enough, during the pandemic, when we were all locked up inside, and I, along with a lot of other lighting designers, used to attend a lot of conferences, and it was great meeting people, interacting with them. Lighting community is really small, so it's always good to meet, discuss projects, discuss problems. So this is something which was great before the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, a whole bunch of lighting designers, we were all locked up and said, what do we do so that we can at least keep this networking going, this interaction going? And my other co-founders were based in Australia, UK, Greece. Six of us lighting designers got together and said, let's start this virtual lighting design community, which will be an online platform or a network where people could come, interact, and this is open to everyone. Anybody who's interested in lighting, it doesn't have to be just lighting designers to just be a part of it. So we have talk shows, we have panel discussions, we have blog posts. So it's like, and during the pandemic, the only thing that we were looking at is Netflix and LinkedIn. So I said, why don't we bring both these together, where we have a Netflix of lighting and a LinkedIn of lighting? So we have these short episodes, season one, season two, season three, which are bite-sized episodes, which people don't have to be focusing for too much more than 20 minutes, get their short dose of information on light, and then also interact. So this is more a combination of these two, if I'm to put it in a very layman's language. But you must visit the platform to see what it is.
So, Scott, let's remember to add that to the show notes below because it's not in the bio, but I'm just looking at it right now. Let's make sure we add that. How much in the last 5, 6, 10 years, how much has light pollution and light pollution abatement and darkness restoration and night preservation? And I mean, listen, the dark sky does a great job with the celestial heritage. Okay, that's hats off to them. They've always been beating that drum for a long time. But it seems like there's a lot more to the issue in 2025 than there was, say, in 2005. In 2005, Dr. Dugar, it always seemed like it was astronomers. Now we're seeing wildlife, human health, wayfinding, too much light, all these different things seem to be coming to the surface, and lighting designers are going to be at the cutting edge of that. What's happening in the lighting design community around this darkness piece?
Excellent question, Michael, because I think we as lighting designers need to add this very important phrase in our terminology, and we should not just call ourselves lighting designers, we should call ourselves light and darkness designers, because darkness is a very underrated thing now. And people are, and you were just talking about lumens per watt. In the lighting designer slang, we have clients who come and tell us brighter is better. So that's exactly what is happening. And what we're trying to do now is that brighter is not better, darker is probably more better, much better than brighter is better. So that's something which we as lighting designers, at least some of the most lighting designers that I'm interacting with are thinking and discussing and talking about. But I think channels like these have to really start stressing this importance of lighting designers incorporating darkness into their overall scheme of things and design.
So one of the nonprofits associated with the show is called the Lighting and Darkness Foundation. And when we founded it, we've had some trouble kind of keeping it going with donations. So if you want to donate, let me know. You can click on the link below. If you want to give, $100,000, we'll do a lot with it. I'm serious about that. But as dark like lighting is a deliverable, right? So you have a project, whether it's a warehouse or a hotel or someone's home, lighting is a deliverable to them. And people haven't thought that darkness is also a deliverable. Like the lighting industry should also be considering selling darkness in the same way that they sell lighting. And I think we're missing 50% of the the entire puzzle of what really surely lighting designers would be the ones doing this the most, lighting and darkness designers. How do we, is it the public we have to convince, Dr. Dugar? Is it the regulatory agencies? Is it the lighting industry? Is it everybody? Who needs to be convinced that darkness can also be a deliverable first, or most importantly?
Let's start with the general public, because if the public is aware of darkness, then I'm sure all the others will follow suit much easier. So I think we need television ads, where social media posts, where we actually start seeing the importance of darkness, because historically darkness is perceived as something bad or something scary. um, and coming from a culture in India, what I have been brought up with is that darkness is something considered really holy, because that's where the birth of life begins. And some of the ancient cultures, not just Indian, I've also studied some of the Chinese cultures, some of the Mayan cultures. All of these cultures talk about the importance of darkness. So I'm not exactly sure where we lost this whole connect with darkness, and suddenly this whole thing came that dark is angelic, and or light is angelic and dark is demonic. That's something which is a very recent trend that has come up with. So I think we need to go back to our roots and try to understand the importance of darkness. Yes, light is important, but darkness is probably more important, because I've been working on a couple of research papers too, and photoperiodism is a phrase which is a lot of times misunderstood by lighting designers, because they think that your exposure to daylight is what determines your internal clocks. Photoperiodism actually tells that it is your exposure to dark that determines your light cycles.
Huh.
So there's a there's a bit of a shift in our education, that we really need to understand
Huh.
that photoperiodism is not about exposure to light; it's exposure to darkness that
Wow.
determines your biological clock, and then you need to come back to light.
That is absolutely ground shaking. Like with that observation, or that whatever that what you would call that, that it's not about your electric light health, it's about your no light health, your darkness health. You need to have this certain amount of darkness. I've never hundreds of hundred over 100 episodes of Restoring Darkness talking about circadian. It's all about your light, 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 light. But it's so obvious that being in darkness would trigger things that are very important too. That's so incredible. On this show, Mark, we're constantly that we're always learning and shifting away from old presuppositions, Dr. Dugar, that are really holding on to our culture and our people. Just to comment on the cultural, it's interesting to hear an Asian perspective, and I know the First Nations people in Canada also revere the night as well. I think that, and I'm a Christian, but I think Christ is the light of the world, right? And so in Christian culture, there is this idea that we want to banish the darkness, and that's what the angels are of the light, and the devil is of the dark, and the light is good, and you should follow the light, and all of this imagery with light is all through the New Testament. Okay, it's everywhere in there. And, I'm a Catholic. I go to church every Sunday. But, I don't think its intent was for us to glare bomb all of our streets with 5,000 K lights. We've gone too far with the light of the world and Christ and everything else. Like, that's not what he's talking about. So I think there is a cultural difference between the two. And I think light pollution although there's lots of light pollution in China and in India now, I think light pollution, the reason why it's in our culture, or why we want brighter is better, is a lot of ways is in Western Christianity. Is where it was kind of infused into the culture, Dr. Dugar. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely want to agree with that, although I don't want to point out any particular religion here, but it's just that this whole concept of literally taking things into and without understanding the actual meaning of it is where the problem lies. So light is good, dark is bad is something which is taken very literally. So that is something which we need to start changing. Our perception has to change and try and understand light in the context of your inner realization is important, not in terms of glare bombing your streets and roadways. So that's something which we need to change our perspective. I know it's going to take some time, but that's why we have Restoring Darkness.
Before I throw it over to Mark Baker to ask some questions, I do want to point out that it's also part of our legal infrastructure, right? So if something happens in an area where there's some kind of a crime and that area was absent of electric light, people will automatically, including police, lawyers, insurance companies, and all that, will demand that electric light be put into that place. And that the reason that happened was because there was no electric light. And I think that's false, Dr. Dugar.
Um, I understand that when there is light, you're able to see. But I was in Australia a couple of years ago, and where I heard that too much of street light led to a sexual assault on a young teenager because the streets were too bright, and she became an easy target for antisocial elements. So, what does one say about that?
I think that you have these straw man, Mark, these straw man arguments, that seem to dominate the debate, where people that are advocating for night preservation and darkness restoration and light pollution abatement are required to prove everything to the other side, while the other side, Mark, is not required to prove anything. That's what you call a straw man argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, I'm having trouble listening because my mind is still blown by what Dr. Dugar said. It's amazing the shift, photoperiodism, if I'm saying that right. And so this idea that I want to, if it's all right, we explore it a little bit more. So that the basic underpinning is this darkness, which we know for health is the time when our bodies are repairing. The cells are being repaired. The melatonin hormone is there directing the brain and everything. So the damage is occurring when the light comes out. If in the United States there are bears that will hibernate during the wintertime. They are mammals. But they will go and crawl into a den, and then they will close their eyes and they will go to sleep. And so it's not necessary to have this light coming in every day. They are functioning. It's true they're using energy, so they will need to wake up and go and eat and such later. But this idea that you brought up, Dr. Dugar, that I'm going to be using now for maybe the rest of my life, is that the kind of the repair, the health. If we meditate, we might close our eyes, so we're blocking of the light again, and then we can connect with our inner selves on that. That the whole fundamental that the darkness is the primary source, and these little spots of light that exist throughout the universe, these little dots, nuclear hydrogen fusion that are going on, are sparse within the entire universe. And that most of the universe is actually dark, sprinkled with that. So, Dr. Dugar, could you just tell us a little bit? Are you in the lighting design world? Do they talk about health at all? Like in school, for example, are they talking to you about the impacts of light on our health?
It's interesting that you're asking me this question. I did my master's in lighting sometime in 2002. 2002 to 2004 was when I studied. And I was taught this thing that humans are phototropic, that we move towards light. So for the next 10 years, I kept believing this, that humans are phototropic, humans are phototropic, humans are phototropic. Until recently, I came across four aspects of all living beings. It's not just humans, all life forms. They have four characteristics, as they say. First is called phototropism. Second is called phototaxis. Third is called photoperiodism, that we've just talked about some time back. And fourth is called circadian entrainment. Interestingly enough, phototropism is a property of only life forms that are non motile, which are plants, trees that are immobile. So, phototropism is about growth either towards light or away from light. So, there can be negative phototropism, positive phototropism, because there are certain plants that grow towards light, and there are certain plants that grow away from light. So, humans are not phototropic, it's only plants and all the immobile life forms are phototropic. So, what are humans? Phototaxis is the phrase used for motile beings. It could be humans, it could be birds, it could be fishes. Any life form that moves, is able to move, and it moves away from light or towards light. Again, it's negative or positive. So I think even lighting design education, in at least from the time I studied, hasn't covered all these aspects of biology, human biology, or life sciences. I think it's an important subject to be covered in lighting design education. So when you talk about health, I think a lot of times lighting designers discuss health, but it's a very superficial and peripheral level. And we really need a lot more researchers to actually go and talk to lighting designers that, hey guys, you need to get your terminology right, at least get your basic terminology right, so that we stop saying that humans are phototropic. Humans have this property of phototaxis and not phototropism.
Consider induction lighting again. Tesla Induction Lighting Company.com. So they're positive phototaxis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, but let me just kind of, so humans, and when we're referring to phototaxis, you can only really refer to natural light from the sun. You can't generate phototaxis in any meaningful way using electric light, right? Like that's not going to really help anybody.
Yes and no. It's just that sometimes when you have greenhouses where they want to artificially grow plants, in that uh, in that form of a scenario, you need to use a light, artificial light. So yes, phototaxis or positive phototaxis is about moving towards light, is more towards natural light, yes, because artificial light will disturb your life cycle.
So I pointed to Mark but I have to ask another question on this one because I have a company that is a horticultural lighting contractor. So we maintain lighting systems that grow plants. Okay. And I'll tell you this, those lights cost way more. Okay. They are commissioned to the T's very specifically with controls and how much and the humidity and the dampness. And it's a major, major effort to grow plants with electric light. It takes a lot of different things, especially if you want to change the taste of tomatoes or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
electric lighting that we use for humans is not nearly as commissioned, designed, and studied the way it is for horticultural lighting. Would you say that's true in terms of health effects? Like if you're looking at how does the light impact the plants, we know a lot about how to make electric light impact plants. But I don't think we know very much about how the electric light we use impacts us.
Yeah, that's very, very true. That because again, this whole concept of uh, I have a problem with this phrase human-centric because it only talks about the selfishness of the human race.
Mm,
You're so self-centered, you're only thinking about humans.
mm,
So, and this whole idea and this study on plants has been done because there is a profit gaining intent out there. So that's the reason why they've studied a lot more on plants, because you want to increase your yield, increase the number of dollars you make from that yield. That's why. But unfortunately, if you study humans, I'm not sure whether they can make the dollars or not. So that's why they're probably not studying humans more.
Um, Michael, this is interesting that you brought up. I live next door to a marijuana farm, and they use artificial light as well. But what Dr. Dugar brought up about this photoperiodism, and then what Michael just said about that they can take the light and then control the plant, really turns everything around for me. So next door to me, they have these what they call hoop houses, and they have coverings. Now, they've put in 5,000 Kelvin LED lights. And one time they forgot to put the covering on, and it blasted my house and for a very long distance across other farms. It was shocking to me, and I went into a panic attack because the blue light really impacts me at night. So we had the super dark night and then this just hideous blue light. So fortunately, my neighbor is a nice guy, and he told his workers never do that again, never forget. Right. So now they have this covering that comes down, and sometimes I see the little peak. It is still disturbing, the little blue light thing. It's evil coming out of there, but it's not the whole thing. But if we go into this idea that there's this evolution with the sun out there, and the plants have evolved with the natural cycle. But if we stick them all inside a hoop house and close it in, then it seems to me, could we reverse? Is that what would happen? That we would reverse the entire cycle if we wanted to? That day becomes night, night becomes day. Darkness is when the plant is doing whatever it does, well, resting, really, right? And then the light, we can turn it on. But you could turn around the 24/7 cycle, or the 12, the half on, half off, and you can make the cycle. And then the plants would probably adapt and evolve, and they would become different, those ones that were propagated within the hoop houses. The problem, as Michael mentioned, for the world and us humans, is that we're not trapped in these hoop houses. We're moving around. And so we have to there's this sun out there that comes up during the day and then provides this, I don't know, do you want to call the sun light pollution? I'm not sure that that's a fair
No,
assessment.
it's just natural light.
It's not natural light.
It's not light pollution. No.
Okay, but it's interfering with the darkness, right? There was this dark, and then the light comes on. Mm-hmm. But now adding the artificial lights everywhere, which certainly 5,000 glare bombs is now interfering with the darkness even worse. But it's not. We have to adapt with the sun.
Well, imagine if you could do it. Imagine if you could do it the other way around, Dr. Dugar. Imagine if you could put up darkness lights, like during the day, that shine down darkness onto things, and all of a sudden there was this like dark patch on the sidewalk, and then away from it was less and less and less dark, right? That would be super weird, right? Like we don't think about the night as being disruptible or something. Or it doesn't matter if we disrupt the night, Dr. Dugar. Just on what Mark said and comment on that, yeah.
Now, have you ever taken a walk in a rainforest, Mark and Michael?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That's what rainforests do, don't they? You have the sun coming in and those thick canopy of trees and cover out the light. You just have these dappled light here. Does that feel unhealthy? Do you feel insecure under that light? Because it has a very magical feel to it. So everything about nature is great. It's just that everything in nature has its own suggested time. All the other life forms follow natural cycles, and that's why they have evolved. There's just one species which has been disturbing these natural cycles time and again, and I'm not going to we all know which the species is. So it's just that we really need to think this through, and that I've been advocating for something called life-centric lighting. So you move away from humans and you
Wow.
install something called life, because life forms have been on this earth for billions of years. So
Mm.
if you look at the smallest bacteria, and human beings are just a minuscule, what, how old are we? Probably 200,000 years.
Something like
So
that.
that's a, yeah, something like that. So it's just a speck in this whole
Mm.
number. So, and why look at the audacity or the immaturity of this youngest species
Mm.
when you call it human centric? So, idea would be, as lighting designers, I think the first thing about education is to start thinking about life centric lighting. Broaden your
Hmm.
perspective. You're not the only species on this earth, and you're the only species which is disturbing everything on this earth. So
You know, it's
that's something which,
Mark, do you remember the episode where I don't know if you were the co-host then or not, but one of the guests was telling us about how deep electric light penetrates the ocean around ports. And it goes for kilometers, actually. Like the light will penetrate into the water and go way out into the ocean. And there are billions of living things that need that darkness in that ocean. And it just not cared about at all. It's not thought about.
We need this issue is really important along, let's say, the coasts,
Hmm.
where the fish come. We know that the fish are turned away by the artificial light. They're expecting the dark. They are afraid of being eaten by a predator. So their food source, they're not coming to where they would normally come. And so this is having an impact on the fish. One of our supporters is in Ketchikan, Alaska, and salmon fishing and is a big industry up there. And she's worked for several years to try to get them to understand that when they put a 4,000K, 5,000K floodlight on a bridge that goes over the river where the salmon are coming up to spawn, is driving them away. They're actually impacting their industry by harming the fish. Dr. Dugar, when they talk about, I'm super fascinated on your education that you became a lighting designer, and all that would be like very very complicated subject. But they probably taught you to be lighting it for human aesthetics. And we need it doesn't it seem that we need lighting designers for protecting the fish.
I'm really fascinated by this question
Me
because,
too.
and when this thing came up, you need lighting to protect the fish. So I went about researching and find out that there are a majority of the species of fish. They're not sensitive to this orange yellowish light. I can't exactly pinpoint what's the frequency, but it's the orange yellow spectrum of light.
Hmm.
So, and this is something which are some. It becomes a marketing gimmick when they say this is turtle friendly or this is fish friendly. Every other manufacturer starts replicating these lights, and they're putting all these orange lights everywhere. Interestingly, in my study and research, I found out that there are certain species of seagulls that get extremely disturbed by this orange yellow light.
Hmm.
Oh no.
So, so what are you doing? You're putting all the seacoast with this orange yellow light because you say you don't want to disturb the fish, you don't want to disturb the turtles, but you don't want to care about the seagulls. So don't they also have a right to live? So
Seagulls are dirty birds. I mean, turtles are a lot cuter than seagulls.
okay, that's a subjective aspect of it, but
Sure.
let's look at the broader
Of
side of
course.
things.
Of
Because
course.
so uh, so life-centric lighting is becoming increasingly more and more complex because when in the earlier question you talked about trees have a restoration cycle.
Mm.
So while trees want these 12 hours of extremely bright light to help in photosynthesis, they also need this 12 hours of super darkness for their restoration cycles. So what light effect is good at one point of time is considered detrimental at another point of time. So that's the first level of complexity that we are facing. And then comes the second level of complexity is the interspecies. So one frequency of light which we term as safe for, say, fish and turtles is not considered good for seagulls. So what are we going to do about it? So this is a really challenge for us lighting designers to start thinking. So work on understanding the number of species that are there. I mean, if you're designing an aviary or you're designing an outdoor park, apart from humans, what are the different types of species that are going to be frequenting that park? And then try to design lighting that is minimally disruptive. I'm not sure it's possible to even design something which is, best thing is to keep it all dark, have it during the day, but minimal disruption is what will be the way forward.
Is light pollution, Dr. Dugar? Like, can we just, like, it's not a metaphor. Like, do you agree that it's time for regulatory authorities, governments, whatever, to start really seeing wasted electric light at night as hazardous waste, as some kind of hazardous waste or something?
Yes, and and thing is, when you say when air gets polluted, it's called air pollution. But why is it called light pollution? Because I think it's darkness that is getting polluted at night,
Yes,
right?
totally.
So the
Yeah.
light is the pollutant.
Yes, the
So I think
phrase
when
is wrong. The whole phrase is
phrase
wrong.
itself is wrong. It's wrong,
Yes, yes,
Wow.
right?
yes. The phrase is
Yeah.
wrong. Yes, we got to call it
So
darkness pollution.
darkness pollution, and you just
Wow.
call it light. You call it light hazard.
Light hazard. Yes. Yes, the light's not polluted. The light's not polluted. It's there,
And
and it.
I say I've been using the phrase for a couple of years, darkness resource,
Mm,
dark as a resource, right?
mm.
And so that what Dr. Dugard just said matches perfectly. It's darkness pollution. Then
Yes,
it's beautiful.
yes. You know what? It's so important to give things the correct phrase. That's why, and I don't want to beat up on DSI. I love the work they do, but dark skies is a bad term. It's misleading and it's negative. You know what I mean? And like, can we relegate it to being an astronomical term? Like the definition of dark skies is when lighting is being designed for or partially for astronomical viewing. That's what dark sky lighting is, right? But the other aspects of lighting have nothing to do with that. That if you check that box, it doesn't mean that everything's great. And so I don't like the phrase dark sky. I think it's a bad phrase. It embodes, it puts foreboding into it. Ooh, dark skies are coming. It's bad, and it's largely an astronomical term. And the idea of life-centric lighting, Mark, or darkness pollution and light hazard, this impacts people right away because all of a sudden you've described with a phrase they can remember what's happening. The darkness is being polluted, Dr. Dugar. That's such a great observation.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts with more public education
Mm.
and talking to people about simple things. We don't have to complicate it. I know there are a lot of things. Even I'm still grappling with a lot of these theories about light. Ever since I've got into researching, because um, I'm a lighting designer. I've heard a lot about artificial light at night, all the problems it is creating. But when I go have a client meeting and I have these poetic discussions about pollution, I'll be shown the door. I said, I don't need
Hmm.
you. I need somebody who can design me. So
It's
I
true.
need to be very pragmatic about it.
Hmm.
And
Ugh.
the way of pragmatism is that, okay, I love the romanticism of darkness. I
Mm.
love the romanticism of light. I love the altruism of
Mm.
darkness. I love the altruism, but I want pragmatism to be into it.
Mm.
So let's just be pragmatic about this whole thing. And okay, it's not easy to move mountain, but then at least we can start moving the rocks and the stones. And then one fine day, the mountain would be moved.
I couldn't agree more with you, Dr. Dugar, on that particular topic, because as much as Mark's work is so important in what we're doing in terms of holding regulators accountable and this sort of thing. At the end of the day, electric lighting's not going anywhere. But I believe, Dr. Dugar, the industry needs to say to itself, everybody from designers, manufacturers, through to contractors and distributors like me on the front lines, we need to start saying that we don't know it yet. We don't have it right. We don't have this right. We need to get better at this, a lot better at this. And people need to start thinking about this from the manufacturer's perspective, at the distribution level. How do you expose customers to different kinds of options? And then I think we can start to get better and better and better. And it's not going to happen. I don't believe it'll happen in my lifetime. Actually, I think it's a 100-year project, Dr. Dugar.
It certainly is. That's what it looks like, because what we are dealing with is a very big word called human ego. A lot of times we're just caught up with these human egos here, and trying to polish each other's egos, we lose the purpose of design. And what really hurts me is that I've seen these pseudo darkness advocates who say darkness is my brand. Like, seriously? You're going to make darkness as your brand? So that's where the commercialization, the human ego, the self centeredness of human beings comes into play. We're talking at a really large thing here. Stop being commercial about it.
It's a movement. It's
Yes.
something that's happening like you can see the news cycle becoming more and more about this. You can see it. But I think I think people have egos, and I think industries have egos too. And so I think it might be time for more leadership in this area from the lighting industry. Do you agree with that, Dr.
Yep.
Dugar? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just that we need lighting people need to take this onus on themselves. Advocacy is a major role there. And what Mark is doing is great, but then we need more people like Mark to come forward, and people from the lighting industry to come forward and talk and do stuff and discuss. One small change that I'm making is that having a research degree, I make sure that I'm going to be trying to publish at least one research paper in a year on these aspects. The last research paper on darkness that I wrote, it took me almost more than 2 years.
Really?
That's a lot of effort
Sure.
and time, and it's unpaid work, but somebody's got to do the dirty job.
You know what? So is this, Mark. What we're doing here, Mark and I are volunteers as well. But you know what I'm going to say to the audience right now? Another way, like there's lots of ways to support, okay? But one way is to donate to the Soft Lights Foundation. Like if you don't know what you can do right now and you're in the lighting industry and you're just like, gosh, man, that Dr. Dugar and what Michael and Mark were talking about really sounds like you can go to the donate link on the Restoring Darkness podcast and you can donate directly to the Soft Lights Foundation. It's a 501c3 charity. He can issue you a receipt. You can go there, click the link. Buy him a cup of coffee. I don't know about this monthly donor thing. I don't think we're really after monthly donors. But if you got $10 or $100 or $1,000, or maybe you're a company and you have like something you want to give to charity as a lighting industry, the Soft Lights Foundation is a great place to go and do that. The other thing is you can donate to the production of the Restoring Darkness podcast as well. So you can donate. You can go to those two pages. It says Soft Lights, and then it says donate right on the website, and you can buy us a cup of coffee, pay, for $250 it costs to produce a podcast, about $250 it costs. So you can donate that. That's a great way to contribute. I can't believe 45 minutes went by already. It's unbelievable, Dr. Dugar. I'm just going to tell everyone that he's invited back anytime he wants to come on the Restoring Darkness podcast, and we'll be inviting you again soon to get your latest research and what you're up to. You can follow him on Facebook, you can follow him on Instagram, you can find him on LinkedIn, and his website is lighting.rnd.in. Is that correct? Did I get that right? Yes.
That's correct. That's
All
correct.
right. And of course, you out there, you don't have to donate, but that's just one way you can contribute. If you don't know what to do, you can throw some money on the table. Thank you for listening, and bye for now. Before you sign off of the podcast again, I want to invite you to have a look or consider again induction lighting. We're obviously going to continue to buy light fixtures, and we want to solve this darkness pollution problem. Darkness pollution, what a way to think about it. I think induction lighting may be able to contribute to that. It has some unique capabilities, which I'm not going to get into now. What I'm going to tell you to do is go to teslainductionlightingcompany.com. That's teslainductionlightingcompany.com. And you can peruse some of their product catalogs, which are, it's neat because the name of the product kind of catalog kind of tells you what it is. Port bright, Gulf bright, equine bright. And I really think, especially in ports, I think ports where the water is, I think laser-like LEDs are going to pierce a lot deeper into the water than an induction lamp that uses reflectors. I think an induction lamp that uses reflectors is not going to penetrate as much. We can't make it perfect, but we can certainly start to investigate other alternatives to LED. Go to teslainductionlightingcompany.com.